first. Um, it's good to see you all and to be with you tonight. Um, New York State is reopening, California is reopening, and the Village Zendo is going to be reopening on Monday for the first time in more than a year. We will be having in-person practice again in the physical Zendo. And I think it comes as a relief to all of us. I think many of us are thinking about you know, getting back to some semblance of normality in our lives, or getting back to some aspects of our lives that we had to abandon over a year ago. Um, but there are questions. I'm, we're all very aware that the crisis continues to surge around the world. I'm aware that in Bolivia, they have still not reached the peak of the third wave. Um, there are questions like, what is normality anyway? And what was normality in the before times? And what would it mean to go back to our life uh, as it was before? Is that even possible? And in terms of our practice, the question I have is, what have we really learned from this whole experience? And how has it changed our practice? Uh, they've been very challenging times, very difficult times, but also times that have given us the opportunity to really see ourselves and to see our world very clearly. And I think it would almost be a waste if we hadn't been changed by all of this, and if our practice were to continue just as it always had. It might even be a disservice to those who have fallen sick or died or sacrificed on the front lines during all of this period if we hadn't made good use of this experience. So I wanted to think about this question in terms of an old Zen story from China about the 7 wise women in the charnel grove. And the story goes like this. A very long time ago in India, there were 7 wise women who were the daughters of 7 great kings. They lived in the lap of luxury. They had very luxurious and privileged lives, attendants surrounding them, attending to their every need, essentially lacking for nothing in life and able to indulge themselves in all of the pleasures that they could possibly want. And then one spring, it was time for the flower viewing season, and all of their friends and acquaintances, noblemen and noblewomen, were preparing to go to the parks and to the countryside to view the beauty of the flowers in springtime, and to have some rest and recreation, and to take pleasure in nature. And one of the 7 wise women said, "Sisters, we shouldn't go off to the parks and countryside to enjoy the flowers. Instead, we should go to enjoy the charnel grounds." And all of the other wise women said, "Wait, why should we go to the charnel grounds? That's just a place full of decaying bodies. What could possibly be of good in a place like that? And the first woman said, "We should just go. I have the feeling that there are good things there." And so they went. And from the start, it sounds like these wise women are a little bit perverse in not going off uh, for rest and recreation and to take pleasure and indulge in the beauties of the springtime, but to go instead to the place that normally, I imagine it on the outskirts of the city, a place that is deliberately away from what everyone deals with in their regular lives, um, to go to a place that uh, may not look so beautiful, that may um, uh, be hard to see, hard to look at, and full of death and full of decay. Uh, but they had the sense that there could be something of benefit, of spiritual benefit, in going to that place. And when they got to the charnel grove, they looked around, and sure enough, the grounds were strewn with uh, bodies that were decaying. And the first woman said, "Look, there's a dead body. Where did the person go?" And in that moment, all of the women looked and they saw the truth that was right before their eyes. And they experienced a deep realization. So, what happened? They saw just what was right in front of them. They saw the fragility of human life. They saw the empty nature, the impermanence of the body, the impermanence of the self. Their eyes were open in that moment, their hearts were open in that moment, and they were intimate with their experience. And it touched them and it transformed them. And when the first woman asked, "Look, there's a dead body, where did the person go?" The other women said, "What? What's she talking about? What's that?" So the first woman had asked a very deep question about the mystery of life. And none of them tried to respond with a scientific explanation or a philosophical interpretation or a metaphysical uh, speculation. They didn't discourse on the Buddhist doctrine of reincarnation or um, the nature of the soul or the absence of a soul. They didn't get trapped in any ideas or any language about what was about their experience. They just were completely intimate with it as it was in that moment. What? What is she talking about? What is the body? What is the self? What is life or death? They didn't get trapped in any ideas of it. And in that moment, there suddenly began to pour down on them beautiful flowers from the heavens. And the women said, "Who is raining these beautiful flowers down upon us?" And in that moment, Indra appeared, surrounded by his celestial consort. And he said, "I am Indra, and I so admire your spiritual practice and achievement that I wanted to honor you." So Indra is uh, an earth god, the protector of the dharma. And he had been an onlooker on on this whole scene. And he admired what he saw, and he admired these women. But unfortunately, Indra hadn't been able to wake up to the scene right before his eyes in the same way as those women. He sat back as a bystander, and then he offered his praise and his applause, and he sent this completely extra thing of these flowers down upon these women. And when the women asked, "Who is it that is raining these flowers down upon us?" Indra had no answer. In fact, he completely missed the fundamental question that the women had posed. And so Indra said, "I'd like to offer you something as a reward for your practice. You can have whatever you would like for the rest of your lives." And the woman said, "But we have everything we could possibly want. We don't lack for anything. What could we possibly need?" So again, Indra was still stuck in this split between life and death. And he was still thinking that there could be some kind of reward for spiritual practice and realization. When the women, from the depths of their intimacy with their own experience, realized that they lacked nothing and wanted for nothing. And then the women said to Indra, "If you'd like to give us something, why don't you give us a rootless tree? Why don't you give us a plot of land which has neither north nor south, nor day nor night, nor man nor woman? And why don't you give us a valley in which a shout produces no echo?" And then Indra replied, "I'm sorry, I can't give you that because I don't have that." And so the women, um, you might see it as engaging in a kind of dharma combat with Indra, but I like to think that really they were trying to help him see something. They were trying to help him see that all things are ultimately empty, and that all things are also the nature of that all things are the manifestation of ultimate reality. And Indra replied that he couldn't give them that because he didn't have this. And maybe there was a kind of glimmering here, some kind of insight that Indra had, that he suddenly realized that he didn't know. And how could he, after all, possess that which is ultimately unattainable? So he said, I can't give that to you because I don't have it. And the women replied, "What a shame. And what can you do then to save others?" They were suggesting that spiritual practice is not only for one's personal salvation, but that one's spiritual practice and realization is connected to everyone else and may be of benefit to everyone else. And I think this is a key moment in the dialogue. But Indra at that point had nothing more to say. He had reached his limit, and he said, "Well, why don't we go and visit Shakyamuni Buddha?" So he led them off to where Shakyamuni was. And when they got to Shakyamuni, Shakyamuni said, "None of the arhats in my assembly can understand this. Only the bodhisattvas can know the real meaning. So the arhats were the shravakas, the pratyeka Buddhas, these very highly evolved spiritual practitioners, but who had a limit to their practice, which is that they were practicing for their own personal salvation. They were trying to achieve um, uh, oneness, purity, and the state of emptiness. But they were also stuck there because that was the end of their practice. And Shakyamuni was saying, um, the bodhisattva can go a step further because the bodhisattva realizes that there's no separation between the emptiness of all things and the fact that all things are the manifestation of ultimate reality. And therefore they can act in the world and be of service in the world. So that gets us to the end of our story. It's a story that different teachers have drawn upon. And Dogen himself used it in teaching his own assembly of monks. And each of the 3 koans that were raised by the 7 wise women, he offered to his assembly. And he said, what is a tree without roots? What would you say if you were asked that question? What is a tree without roots? And Dogen offered an answer. He said, the cypress tree in the garden. The cypress tree in the garden is a line from another famous koan. A monk asked the old Chinese teacher Zhao Zhu, what is the meaning of bodhidharmas coming from the West? In other words, why did the first Chinese ancestor bring the Dharma from India? What is the fundamental meaning of the Buddhist teaching of the Dharma? Zhao Zhu said, the cypress tree in the garden. He brought it right down to earth and put it in very simple terms, in terms of what was right before their eyes. The cypress tree, whole and complete unto itself, and yet not fixed or set with any intrinsic essential character. And then Dogen said, well, if that's not good enough for you, then this is it. And he held up his teaching staff. The tree without roots and without any fixed essential character. And if Dogen's answers weren't good enough, I would say, you are it. You are the tree without roots or any fixed essential nature. And then Dogen gave them the second koan. What is a plot of land that has neither north nor south, day or night, male or female, life or death, black or white, sick or healthy? And what would you say to that? What is that plot of land? And Dogen offered an answer. He said, the charnel grounds, without north or south, light or shadow, life or death. And he said, and if that's not good enough for you, he would say, it's the whole earth in the 10 directions. And if that's not good enough, I would say, it's Zoom. And then he offered the third koan. What is a valley in which a shout produces no echoes? And what would you say to that? So Dogen offered an answer. He said, if you call out sisters and they answer back, that is the valley in which a shout produces no echo. And if they don't answer, then there is no echo. And if that isn't good enough, I would say, ah. So these have been exceptional times and trying times, but also COVID may be good for something. The epidemic may have some good things. It's given us the opportunity to really see ourselves and see our world, to see the impermanence of our bodies and our minds. It's given us the chance to open our eyes and open our hearts and be intimate with what is right now. And to see that if indeed all things are impermanent, all things are also the manifestation of ultimate reality, starting with ourselves. And if we can appreciate this and experience this, it can give us a measure of clarity, stability, peace, freedom in our own lives. And it may also be able to help us engage with others and offer ourselves and our lives and a measure of clarity and freedom and stability and peace to others in the midst of all of the affliction. So we have the chance to honor those who have fallen sick and died and offered themselves on the front lines. How? Just by living our lives in a way that is awake right now, and a life that is of service to others. So I think I'll end there. What? What's he talking about? What am I talking about? Have a good evening.